So you got a new album coming out this week, huh?
Uh, yes, yes.
And
Who's
how are you
coming on?
feeling about it with it kind of being released with all this stuff going on around?
You can't. You can only play the hand you're dealt. You know. So I'm the hand I'm dealt is this place, this time, and you know, and so I just make the most of it. Um, maybe you know, a couple of songs off the album fits the times. You know, the title track "Feed the Poor" is
Definitely.
necessary right now in the United States where I live because of 40 million people out of work, and we don't know when anybody's going to get back to work, really work. And so you know, I just I think it's all connected. You know, to be quite honest, I think you know, this record made people can hear it here at home, especially around the world, and they say, well, you know, maybe some of that applies to what's going on right now. Maybe
Yeah.
some of what's going on this song applies.
Yeah. It's amazing because I just interviewed somebody else in Chicago, and he had also written a song that seemed like it was written exactly for what's going on these days. And I get the feeling that as musicians and songwriters, you guys have your finger on the pulse before it even happens.
Well, you know, I think because we travel so much, we interact with all different cultures. We're sort of I don't know, old expression, town crier. You know, someone that sings what's going on in the area. That's before you had newspapers, you had a town crier, and sort of you're sort of a town crier. But if you leave your if you open your eyes, your heart, and your mind, you can just about feel what's going on wherever you go. You know, and people will tell you certain things, and then you come back home, and every time you come home, you see a bit of a change, a bit of a change, a bit of a change, a bit of a this, a bit of a that. Either we're going forward or we're going backwards a little bit. Nothing stays static. And you know, in particular, this time right now is it's a heck of uh, uh, a change for the United States and the world. You know, and the world because um, happening now is something very important and that very important. You still there?
I am.
You still
My
there?
mother's trying to Skype me from
Okay,
Florida.
and the very important. Well, the very important thing is that we're all sharing something all at the same time. In other words, we're all seeing what happened one at the same time that's affecting us all almost the same way. Now, I'm sure there's people that say, "Oh, well, good for, you know, blah blah." You know, maybe the guy deserved that, or you know, of course, we always have that element. But what you have now is basically, since nobody's working, nobody's really out there, out and about. People spend a lot of time at home, and so when you have all all of us in experience the same thing at the same time, it's a visceral response. That's what it is. There's
Right.
no there's no chance to explain this away. There's no chance to duck your head in the sand. There's no chance to say that other than why did it happen? Well, the reason it happens because we have issues that we haven't dealt with. You know, it's like if you have something, have a physical ailment or something, and you let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go. You know, I have a toothache. I'm letting it go. It's okay. I'm letting it go. I let it go. Then it's an abscess,
Yeah.
and then it can kill you. Well, we've got an abscess that we haven't dealt with, and it now with the catalyst of what's happened, it's made us all, whether we want to or not, people who are I'm not political, or people are well, I don't, you know, I don't pay attention to that. Well, that's it'll go away. No, we all have to deal with these issues, and I think that this is the perfect storm for income inequality
Right.
worldwide.
Yeah.
It's something I've seen about 50 people having $50 billion
Right.
and 250 million people having nothing.
Yeah.
It's just obscene,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's the point to where we're at now. And it's making everybody sort of dig inside, you know, to look and see, hey, well, let me look at this. Let me look at this and see and to make sure that climate control is looked through. Young people don't have to go to college and hawk themselves for pay back a college loans. That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a really a reflective time. The only unique thing about it is that we're all going through it at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, we just had a Black Lives Matter rally in Auckland here in New Zealand. You know, we're tens of thousands of miles away from what's going on in the States, but it affects everybody, you know, and everybody feels the same way about it, you know?
Yeah, but you know, I think Black Lives Matter is just in a way a euphemism. It's it's an organization,
Yeah.
but it's really euphemism for a lot of things that maybe Australia doesn't have a Black Lives Matter. They should damn sure have an Aboriginal Lives Matter. You know,
That's right.
I mean, just being honest about it. You know,
Absolutely.
and so of course, you know, and it's like, well, nobody can turn back the hand of time and say, okay, we're going to be fair in this situation. And we see now in 2020 hindsight, nobody can do that. None of us have a time machine, but we can do something about the future.
Yeah.
You know, we can do, and to do something about the future, to do something if there's a problem, I do believe that first you have to recognize the problem and really sit down and try to figure a way to do the best you can to correct the problem, and then put in policies that help. I mean, it's really not that hard, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I
No.
think the first thing has to be the desire to do it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess somehow the other thing that has to happen is that people's heads and the way of their thinking has to change about how they look at the fellow man, especially people who are different than them. And that's a tougher nut to crack, I think, because it seems almost like human nature that people want to feel superior to somebody else. You know, it's like you mentioned the Australians and the Aboriginals, and I mean, it's just worldwide.
Yeah, I think that's I would just tweak what you said a little bit
Sure, go ahead.
and say more than someone's head has to change, their heart has to change.
Yeah, you're right.
And the way people's heart change, the way people's hearts change is that I can put myself in someone else's position. I want to put myself in someone else, or I can experience some of what you're experiencing. And that's what's happening now in the United States when you see all these rallies of these mixed crowds of people very upset because of the unfairness, you know.
Yeah.
And just you know, and just to backtrack a little bit, you know, the thing of someone being able to put themselves in someone else's position, they get less fortunate. I think that I have a lot of friends that are musicians, all kinds of friends, Hispanic, Australian. I mean, really good friends of mine. I'm tight friends, you know.
Right.
French, English, and when I go to most Occidental countries, Europe, whether it be European or Australia or whatever, most of my friends who are not indigenous of that country, they all feel really bad about the way indigenous people are treated. They really do. But they still reward, get they get the benefits from the people who are held down.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
and that's just the reality. And the reason things are being so, and you can feel the changes this far from coming. You can feel it. You can feel how palpable the change is. You being American, you might know this.
Yeah.
The reason that is because just like in 68, 65, 66, 67, I was a kid going down Mississippi. 62, my daddy from Cleveland, Mississippi. I was down there when we didn't have the vote. You could not vote. It's hard to explain to somebody what it's like to not be able to vote. Or you could vote with a poll tax,
Right.
which is just crazy. Or they do stuff like this. They take you in there and ask you, well, how many times did Abraham Lincoln go to the Abraham Lincoln bed in a month? How many chocolate M&Ms is in a bag? Crazy stuff, just so that you couldn't vote. But what's the thing about now, and that's to me very, very connected to then, when they see all the marches with MLK, with, of all people, Charlton Heston marching with him, Marlon Brando, Burt Lancaster, guys that ended up being right wing, left wing, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The difference and the connection to now is that you see these crowds are all mixed.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know, that the government doesn't listen to us. You can be Joe Louis Walker or the bum on the street. You could be Michael Jackson. You can be anybody else. Your opinion does not matter to the majority of the country. But when the pain is shared and when the experience is shared, it matters. You know, it really does. And so when white people get pissed off at what's going on, this is what happens.
Yeah.
But when we just say it over and over again, you say, "Oh, black guy got killed." And what was he running for? The thing about this with this guy is everybody saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big difference.
Saw it, and everybody knows.
Yeah.
That if that was a dog in America, everybody that went to jail for killing that dog like that.
Yeah.
But this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so now people get it now. They really do. I really feel they get it. Whether it makes a difference, I think it is, because it's a generational thing also.
Yeah.
The younger kids coming up nowadays, you might have a young white kid in Mississippi, and on his heroes on the wall will be Bob Marley, Beyonce,
Yeah.
Gary Clark Jr., and then a lot of other, you know, icons of all stripes.
Yeah.
They don't play that. They don't buy into that. And to me, that's the hope. You know, that's the hope for me.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, let's hope it. I mean, who knows what this is going to play out as, but it's interesting times for sure. Now, we should talk a little bit about your record as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Blues Comin' On. You've got everybody and his mother on the record. How did you, I mean, was this a concept that you came up with? Did you decided you wanted to work with all these people? Because, I mean, everybody from Dion to Albert Lee to Jelly Bean Johnson. I mean,
well, all these people are friends of mine.
Right.
You know, some of them are closer to me that I've known for years and been around. Jorma yeah. Kaukonen, and you know, I remember when Jorma moved to the neighborhood, when he moved to the hood, you know, before he was in the Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, Jorma is just someone I've always looked up to. You know, he's always, to me, the generation before me that had to invent what they were going to play. Yeah. I mean, Jorma, he could play Reverend Gary Davis stuff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you think it's 5 guitar players playing at once. I mean, but you know, when he came out to the West Coast, and so, you know, I always got to see Jorma play, you know, and I always, you know, was around him sometime, but he was already a star, you know.
Yeah. And I got to say, I just love his sound on that Feed the Poor song, because it is that classic San Francisco psychedelic guitar thing that he was doing with the Airplane that you know, I haven't heard in a long time, and it just feels good.
It really does, you know, and that's the exactly reason I wanted him on the record, more for me than for anything else, because I just, and the funny thing, and I'll tell you, of all the guitar players on there, you know, I mean, Waddy Wachtel's like my brother from another mother. I mean, Waddy's the guy. For me, you know, Waddy's just one of the greatest stage's guitar players. No filter, which I love. It's a producer on stage, you know, it's like him and Keith are like bookends, you know?
Yeah.
It's just straight. There is no filter when you talk to them. You know, it's just straight. If you don't want to hear the real shit, don't talk to them. But anyway, I played the track "Feet to Pour" for Jorma for Waddy, and Waddy just said, "Joe, what a selection of notes."
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
nobody would select. You know, it's almost like a jazz player, because there's notes that don't fit by themselves. But like Miles Davis says, it's not that note that's going to make that note fit. It's the note you play after it.
That's right.
And Jorma, for some kind of way, he does that naturally, you know, and it's just, who knows, it may be the Finnish background. I don't know.
Yeah. And so I know Dion is releasing his album on the same day as you are, and you both, Blues Comin On is kind of on both records.
Mm-hmm.
You're on his, he's on yours. What's the relationship between the two of you?
Well, I mean, the king of New York, man. It's Dion. What happened is Dion sent me a whole bunch of tracks. You know, Joe, check this track out about 2 years ago. You know, check this track out. And he sent me that song as well as other songs. He sent me the song, of course, that I played on with him and Van Morrison. I Got Nothing on Dion's record. But he sent me that song, and I'm like, Dion, I want to do this song. And I love what he said. You know, he said the same thing Keith said to me when I told Keith I was going to do Make No Mistake. He said, make it yours, Joe. Yeah. Make it yours. And that's what I did. So if you listen to Dion's version, it's more traditional. You listen to my version, I got some great players on there. Waddy's on there. Dion's playing acoustic. Waddy's playing acoustic. I'm playing electric. Eric Gales is taking a solo.
So who's taking the solo at the end of that track?
That's Eric Gale's solo.
Oh, really?
I'm
man,
not soloing at all.
He gets going.
Yeah, that's Eric. Man, I mean, he's got that thing, you know. And who else? Tom Hainbridge is playing drums on the track. Dorian Randolph is playing drums on the track. Juma Sultan from Jimi Hendrix's thing is playing crooners and percussion. So it's all of us, and I'm a rhythm nut, you know. That goes for rhythm guitar and rhythm. If it's up to me, I'd be like James Brown, or the Allman Brothers that are dead. 2 drummers, conga players, timbales. The more rhythm, the less you gotta wank off with the guitar, and you can play against the rhythm. Because I know you notice there's guitar players that can play a solo over the whole. If it's 16 bars, they'll play over the whole 16 bars. They might not even take a breath, you know. So instead of going, reminds me of the Flight of the Bumblebees. And whereas I'm the kind of player, I like to play, you know, against the rhythm and with the rhythm. But I think that's sort of a generational thing too, because when I was 17, I played that way. I could play that, boy, and it's impressive. But now that I'm 70, I'd rather go get Eric Gales to play the lead, or Jesse Johnson, and then I'll feed off of them. You know, like with Jesse Johnson, we did the thing. I let Jesse do all that Jimi Hendrix thing. Jesse Johnson, wild, like Waddy said about his solo. Waddy said, Joe, when he solos, look out below, because he just comes in like a bat out of hell. The only thing I could not match that. So the only thing I could do with Jesse is he did all the, and I did the feedback. Because that's what I do on stage anyway. That's the generation I come out of. I can do the feedback with the best of them. So it's just, I try to Duda songs on the record. Maybe it's my name on the record, but I really, really wanted to showcase people like Carla Cook,
Right.
who's Sam Cooke's daughter, and
Yeah.
we sang two really nice ballads together, and that sort of takes it away from the other sort of a groove on the record, which is the guitar and
Yeah.
da da da. And I did a lot of acoustic stuff on there with me and John Sebastian and Ray Walker from the Jordanaires, and we did the what's that song? Lonely Weekend, the old Charlie Rich song.
Beautiful
And
song.
yeah, I love that song, man. I just love it. And we did some things, and of course I had my friend Albert Lee, but Albert's done a lot for me, and I love him to death.
And you can tell his guitar playing is so fluid sounding on that track. It's like that's his thing.
Well, he's one of those. I call him one of the gypsy guitar players. There's a bunch of them. It's him, Peter Frampton, Ronnie Wood. Ronnie's gypsy. They're all sort of gypsy players.
Right.
I'm really. I'm saying really. So with Albert Lee, you get somebody that can play the chord changes. If you notice on that song, he's playing the chord change. And with any other guitar player, he just stays static and play the pentatonic scale.
Right.
Not Albert. You get the gypsy thing, and that clear tone is just so beautiful in a world of pedals.
What were the sessions like? Were you guys in the same room together, or was it kind of like all over the place, or how?
Well, when I could be, with Sebastian, I was in the same room, and Jorma was in the same room. But a lot of the guys were on tour, so I had to catch as catch can. So with Jorma, of course, Jorma was the hardest to get because he was always moving with Hot Tuna, and he was doing the 50 years of Hot Tuna, what have you. And with Albert, it was very rare that I could get in the room with everybody. Just a few times. All the stuff with Sebastian, the Kidmo stuff, and but for the most part, like Charlie Harper of the UK subs, Charlie had to do it in England.
Right.
When he did the love song 7 7 Is.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about that because that last track, 7 and 7 Is, which I'm familiar with from Love, it just kind of blows the whole album out of the water. It's very different than everything that came before it. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? What was your thought process as far as putting that on the record?
Well, when I was about 17, I went to junior high school a half a block from the Film Auditorium on Fillmore and Gary Street in San Francisco. So we got to do our Battle of the Bands there and see all the. So when we got to see the Temptations and James Brown, when he got a new brand. And so when the Mime Troupe took over, and then Bill Graham started taking over, they started having very diverse bills. On a bill, you could see the Grateful Dead, Howlin' Wolf, and Ornette Coleman. Right. Or you could see, Richie Havens, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and Manita de Plata. And so one group that came, you got to realize I'm 17-year-old black guy, and I'm from San Francisco, and I grew up in the blues with my dad. I could play, but it wasn't a whole lot of guys, like sort of hippie, sort of cool hippie guys with their own band. And the one guy that was Arthur Lee. Every time Arthur and Johnny Eccles, Brian McLean came to San Francisco, I was in the front row. There is no row at the Film Auditorium. Everybody stood up. And so I got to see him when My Little Red Book was a hit. But when he came out with 7 and 7 Is, it just burned up the airwaves, man. I mean, in San Francisco, and when I got to see him do it, and I just fell in love. I just fell in love with love. I mean, Arthur Lee he was a genius.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just incredible, and it's bizarre because I'm thinking, man, this it would be. I love the way Johnny Eccles played guitar, but the guitar player never really stretched out.
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget. I was living with a guy, Mike Bloomfield, and Michael was starting this group called Electric Flag, right? So he had a drummer. The drummer was a black cat he got out of Pickett's band with Buddy Miles. Buddy Miles didn't know nobody in the Bay Area, so Michael said, "Joe, you take Buddy around, and jam him a little bit." And so we'd go to the Bridge Theater because Michael rented it, and just to keep Buddy's chops up. And Buddy was always saying, "Joe, you got to hear this guy, Jimmy." I said, "Well, is he as good as Arthur Lee and them?" Man, Jimmy, he knows Arthur, Jimmy. And come to find out, you fast forward it. Once I got to meet Jimmy, and you know, he ain't playing whatnot.
Yeah.
His hero, his buddy, who he literally took the clothes out of his closet, was Arthur Lee. And they're letting out the tracks now of the BBC.
Oh, right.
Have you heard it?
I haven't heard
Jimmy
it,
and
no.
Arthur in the studio. And
Right.
in those tracks, you can hear the gestation of Axis Bold as Love.
Right,
You
right.
can hear a lot of the stuff that Jimmy did later, but those two were doing it in the studio, but they were so, I think they partied a little too much
Yeah.
to really have anything that was worth, you know, really have. But Jimmy plays on some of Arthur's stuff, which is
Right.
really cool, you know, which
Yeah.
is on Arthur's double box record.
Yeah. I mean, he was a tortured soul, obviously, and he had a rough life.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
but at least I felt like at the end or near the end, he was getting a bit of his due. He was, you know, getting on television and people were paying attention to him again. And it was a good thing.
Just didn't live long enough.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, you must have seen some amazing things. I mean, you've been playing for years, and like you say, you're 70 years old, so you know, you're back in the 60s and 70s. And I've never spoken to anybody who offhandedly mentions that his roommate was Michael Bloomfield, you know. So that's just mind-blowing. And so as far as guitar playing, how does all that kind of settle into what you do? All that experience and all these people that you know, because they're all on the record, you know.
Well, I think you know, I learned a long time ago, you know, and I'm fortunate. Old guy told me, he says, Joe, you know, you can learn something for everybody who played the guitar, and I really try to put myself in that position. But I've never felt like I needed to be the focus on guitar.
Right.
You know, I always felt, and maybe it's from playing in gospel groups for years, that the song needed to be the focus of the guitar. Now I'm all for stretching out. I can do it, you know, but when I have a song like me and Gabriel wrote, Feed the Poor. I mean, I just heard Jorma in my brain from day one, you know, playing the way that I heard him play at the Fillmore. The trick was to find a song for him to do it in. And the other trick was to have the lyrics something that related to the generation that Jorma and myself to a degree, and you know, San Francisco, we did so many benefits for everything, that type of thing. The song had to be about something, a connection.
Right.
And so when Gabriel wrote, he wrote a whole bunch of poems and he sent them to me, and he had written all these poems, and I said, oh man, when I read the first one, you know, people lying in the gutter, no father, no mother, everyone walks past because they're hypnotized by money's trance. It just knocks me down. I was like, Gabriel, where in the hell did you think about that? You writing this shit, and your dad's writing rape and murder just a shot away. what you listening to? What Nick listening at? And so he says, no, Joe, this is, and I was like, man, this is cool. Like I said, I'm gonna build a song around this. And Gabe's like, well, I got like 18 folders full. No, just one, Gabe, you know. And Jorma heard it, and he liked it. He liked the message of it, you know. Mick heard it. Mick liked it, you know, because he's proud of his son. You know, I'm proud of Gabriel. I thought, you know, that was a way cool play. And for him to say, Joe, let's give the proceeds from this song to food banks in England and in the UK and in the United States was admirable, you know. And so it worked, you know. It really worked.
Yeah. Well, I probably should wrap this up, but I got to say, I love talking to you about this record. I love listening to it. It's great that, like, just hearing you and Jorma was enough for me. That was just the first track, and then there's 12 other. I mean, it was just amazing. So good luck with the record. Good luck with what's going on in the States. Be safe. And take care of yourself, and, you know, try and come down this part of the world when you get a chance sometime.
Oh, I will. I was planning on coming with Fiona, my good friend Fiona Boyes. You know, we were going to do some stuff, but, you know, as we know, life happened upon us all.
Yes, it does.
And, and so now we'll see what the future holds for us.
Excellent. Well, good luck with everything, and thank you very much.
Thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.